Hi, I am Debbie Schwartz, founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 Facebook group. I am here with Ellen Whalen, who is our counselor in residence, who does a lot of the sessions for a program called College Insights Academy, and also works one-on-one with all the families who request those types of services. So let me just do a tiny bit of housekeeping. People are asking for the captions, so let me put that on. Captions, show captions, great. Let me send this to Facebook if anybody's going to watch it there. And Ellen, while I do that, do you mind giving a quick background on yourself?
No. Hi, I'm Ellen Whalen. It's my pleasure to be here tonight with all of you. This is going to be my 7th season doing college admissions counseling, and I come at it from a bit of a different angle. I graduated from Wellesley College with a BA in economics and Spanish, and then I worked in Fortune 500 companies doing sales and marketing for over a decade. And when I had children, I got to click something here. I took a break and became a professional writer and editor. And I find that these skill sets really work well in this industry. And it's my pleasure to help families. And I've had my 2 daughters go through this. I have a daughter graduated from Wellesley and another one that's at Hamilton. And I've helped hundreds of families, and I'm getting around that 1,000 essay mark, I think, of editing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, Ellen has helped a ton of families with us through Road to College, and then through her own practice. And she has a great insight into kind of what angles to take when you're students writing both their Common App personal statements and also the supplemental essays. So let's get started. Ellen has slides to share. I will be checking the chat if you've got questions, and we did get samples from people. Thank you for sending them in. We couldn't use all of them, but Ellen picked a few. So we have some of those samples that we're going to go through to apply what Ellen talks about to some real live essays.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I have that capability, right, Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me review, and here we go. Okay, so college-specific essays, also known as supplemental essays. So we're going to try to give you some insights, some tips, some tricks, and hopefully it will make everyone's lives easier. Okay. So about the Ivy Plus colleges say that 80% of the students that apply can do the work. So again, it's all about standing out in the process. And so once the academic hurdles have been passed, what's important is what's in the Common App, and a big piece of that is the writing. And what I have found is that students tend to put a lot of time into the personal statement, and they don't put as much time into the supplemental essays. And what's happening, because there's so many applicants, that these colleges are overwhelmed. And I'm finding, and I've heard this from other counselors, that the supplemental essays are now as important, if not more important, than the personal statement. Because it's that extra, these colleges are looking for a reason to take someone out of the admit pile, because they have to. They just have to, because of the numbers. If there's a 4% acceptance rate, that's what they have to do, and it's very hard. So if students don't demonstrate that they know the college through these essays, then that can be a reason to be taken out of the admit pile. So please keep that in mind. So writing a tight, detailed, filled essay can be key in this process. All right, so I touched upon this a little bit, but why do colleges ask for these essays? Well, first of all, they want to learn more about you. So every essay is another opportunity for a student to show themselves from a different angle. And they also want to know if you are a good fit for their college. It's another way for students to show demonstrated interest and that they know information about the college. And it can help a student, what I have found through this process, if the student digs deeply enough, they get to know the college better. And I think often they can become more excited about the college. And this can even happen with their likely schools, that they go, oh my gosh, I didn't know they had this aspect. And so it's an interesting process to see it unfold if done well. So the last thing is on this screen, optional isn't optional, right? Again, colleges are looking for reasons to say no. So if everyone is writing an optional essay, when there are ones and your student isn't, then they're going to stand out for not writing it. So keep that in mind. Okay. So, with the increase in applications, as I said, these essays are, more important. Oh, I'm sorry, I went the wrong direction. Sorry about that. Or did I? I know what I did. Okay. I've got two screens going so I can read some notes at the same time, and I pushed the wrong button on the other one. Okay. So the more competitive a college, the more likely they are to have these essays, because again, it helps them to know if the student's a good fit, and also it's another hurdle to jump over. So it's not unusual. Some schools might have 4 essays, and they might also have popcorn essays, which are short answer questions. Okay. For example, I just want to say my daughter that's at Hamilton, I counted 23 essays that she did, and that included a few for a theater portfolio. I had another client who had well over 30, and she wrote unique essays for every single one. It was really crazy. Okay. So where can these essays be found? They should hopefully be on the college's admissions page, but the definitive one is when they're in the Common App students. August 1st is when it goes live, and the student goes to the individual colleges tab. Under that, there'll be questions, and it's usually under the writing tab of the questions, but go through every single tab under the college specific area, because there can be questions hidden under the major. It could be a question hidden under, if they hit that they went to the honors college, an essay might pop up. If they're, selecting that they're going to do something with an art portfolio, it could come up. So those are just things to keep in mind. But that's something when August 1st, with the schools the students know currently, I would have them do that so they don't have any surprises, and then put all the supplemental essays like on a spreadsheet so they can all be seen and look for commonalities, which I will get into. Another thing that can happen after a student applies, they might think there aren't any supplemental essays, and sometimes, I know this happened with my daughter at Colgate in Hamilton, they pop up in the portal, and that's after the students have sent in their application, they get portal instructions, and that's then how the colleges communicate to them. So it's important to check the portal after a student applies. Okay, so
sorry, Ellen, there was a
yes.
question you mentioned a little bit earlier about optional isn't optional. Is that relate to like other questions as well? Like there's the additional information section of the Common App. Okay,
so the additional information section is usually underutilized. So you don't have to use that, but I have said in the past that I find it hard to believe that there isn't something that doesn't need clarification or couldn't be expanded upon to benefit your student. Now, you want to use it judiciously. You want to keep it short and to the point and relevant. You don't want to upload a resume. You don't want to upload extra supplemental essays for another college that you just want to, put it in there. So that's not what it's for. It's to clarify issues with grades, with course selection. If maybe, they got a Girl Scout Gold Award and they want to expand upon that a little bit more, those are the reasons to use the additional information section. So when I'm talking about optional other areas, and that could be one of them, and you wouldn't use the COVID if there's no reason there's a COVID essay. If there's no COVID reflection, don't use it. But when there are things like an optional interview, it's best to try to take advantage of them when you can. All right. So, oh, and if there are optional essays in the portal or essays in general, often the colleges give them a few weeks to do it. So don't be surprised if that occurs. Okay, so you might be wondering what the most common essay questions are. They kind of come in these 6 types. So when I said go and look at all the essays and put them in an Excel spreadsheet, you're going to see commonalities and generalizations. There's this why this college. That comes in different forms, but ultimately, why do you want to come to this college? What do you think? Why do you think you're going to be a good fit at our college? Those are all, in essence, a why this college essay. What they're looking at, what they're looking for an answer is why you would be a good fit on their campus and why their campus kind of meets your needs. And it helps to see how you will be on their campus through using activities a student is currently participating in and what they might choose to participate in similarly on campus and their different academic focuses. So the next one, which can overlap with a why this college, and sometimes it becomes one question. They'll say, why this college and why this major under one question. So why this major, it would be why, same idea, why is the student interested in this major and why is our college a good fit for the major your student's interested in. So kind of same theme, same idea, sliced a little differently. Favorite activity can come in different types of questions again, but essentially it is reduced down to that. And so if a student has a really activity that's really important to them, they might want to, and they're writing about it or thinking of writing about it for the personal statement, they might not want to, or they might want to touch upon it, but not go into depth. They might want to hold that to the side and first of all, see if there are favorite activity essays. So it's good to know. That's why it's also good to know these essays. Do you know, you can kind of map out what different areas a student wants to highlight in these different questions to make sure there's this big 3-dimensional information about the student. So it's not just the same one note thread. Okay, a very popular, there's been a lot of community questions, like, you know, what community are you involved in? But diversity has been added into this, especially in light of, you know, affirmative action being ended. So they might also, instead of diversity, might use the word like lived experience. So UVA just came out with a new 300-word essay, and it is, what about your background, perspective, or experience will serve as a source of strength for you or those around you at UVA? And it's getting at kind of this kind of diversity question, getting around affirmative action a bit. It opens the door for a student to talk about their identity and some, you know, whatever aspects of their life they want to share. Why the honors college, that is another popular one. And oh, and just to finish about community, diversity community can be it can be school community, it could be a sports team, it could be church, it could be family, it could be a town, it could be you know, just French club, whatever it is, community theater, could be anything. And so the last one, which are becoming more common, are popcorn questions. And that's where it might be, what's your favorite book? And they have 50 or 100 characters to answer the question. Or what historical figure, you know, would you like to have dinner with? So questions like that. And they might have like 8 or 10 of them. So those are the most common questions that I have seen over time.
So
Okay.
Ellen, there's a good question. Somebody's asking, what if they actually talk about the major that they're interested in as part of their Common App personal statement, and then, you know, there might be a supplemental question that relates to it.
Yeah, and that's why it's helpful to know the questions ahead of time. But hopefully, if it's your major, hopefully you have other information to come at the other question. So yeah, it's good to hold back some information if you are going to write about your major, so you still have something new to share in the why this major essay. So hopefully, if you don't have anything else, maybe there's something you can add into your personal statement, like another paragraph that shows another side of you, and that paragraph that's getting replaced maybe could go into a why this major type of thing. The student can also spend a fair amount of time talking about what the college has specifically that is perfect for what they want to study. And I'm going to go into that kind of stuff as we progress. So a trick is to, let's say they have their favorite activity, is to look at all the different word counts. So when my daughter was doing it, there was definitely, you know, what's your favorite activity? And I think she had to write it 4 or 5 times. And the word length ranged from 400 all the way down to 150. So what I suggest is the student writes the longest essay, the 400-word essay in this case, and then cull it down. And it's not easy to cull it down, but it's easier to cull it down in that they have a framework. And so keep that in mind, that that's a recycling of an essay, but it's culling it so that it still reads well, and the essence, the heart of the essay is still there. All right, so we're going to cover mistakes to avoid. So broad generalities, those are what you want to avoid. So you don't want to talk about weather or location. So a lot of students talk about, let's say, Northeastern, I love Boston. Well, you know, what are they? How many are there? I don't know. They're like 60 plus colleges in the rough area around Boston. So that's not a good, you know, that's not specific, right? Some students say, I want to go to an Ivy. Well, the Ivies are a lot of them are pretty different, especially if you compare Dartmouth to Columbia, for example. And then recycling essays. So on some level, essays can be recycled, but it's important to know how to do them. So if a student, let's say, does, why the school, and they're just saying broad things, I love the weather, I love, the football team, and then they don't, but they cite the football team's name, whatever it is, the Penguins, and they don't change it for the next school, then that is obviously a tip that they weren't paying attention. They were careless, not paying attention to details, and the college knows that they recycled an essay and didn't care enough to catch it, is their thinking. Wasting precious words. Some of these essays are as short as 100 words, and every single word counts. And again, being specific and not just doing broad generalities with regard to the conservation of words.
So actually, talking about conservation of words, somebody was asking about word count. Can you talk about how many words are acceptable?
I wouldn't go over the amount of words that they say. So again,
Right.
So some colleges, Penn State Honors College, they have I think they have 8 essays in total, 8 or 10. I can't remember if it's at least 8. And 2 of them are 800 words each. So that's a very, very long essay. So that's an extreme amount. That's more than the personal statement. But my understanding is that the Common App will cut it off. So the essay, let's say a student writes a 300-word essay, it's a 250-word essay. the ending will get cut off. So they want to pay attention to directions and match the word count.
Right, and so the word count can vary and will vary from school to school and supplemental essays. So some might be 300, some might be 250. I've even seen 150. So, yeah.
Yep. Dartmouth, which I'll be showing, is 100. So, okay. Next one. Okay, so let's talk about best practices for the why us and why this major. So hopefully your student was, or both of you have been taking notes, whether visiting a campus or listening to online talks or just doing research. And that is when it can be really helpful to pull up those notes. And that's what I always recommend to our College Insights Academy group, to do that. And it makes it a lot easier if a student hasn't been doing that, or a school has just landed, on their list. It can take 2 to 4 hours of research to write a why this essay well, to get the specifics. One place they might want to look is the mission statement and or the strategic plan, to get some ideas of what the college is looking for, what kind of tells of the type of student they're looking to bring into the college, into the community. And then the essay can kind of be crafted around that a little bit, or give a nod to it in a sentence. Looking at the professors in the classes is a really great way to be specific, and I'll go into that some more. So another thing is, what do you want to do on campus? Look at the clubs and the traditions. You can literally Google the school's name and clubs, and all the clubs come up generally. And then which clubs does your student like? Which ones pair with what they're already doing, and which ones might be something where they say they want to try something new. And that's the idea of, what are you doing now that you'd like to continue? All right, so next. So some essay writing tips. So I've said this before in my last talk, writing is rewriting. So read the essays out loud, have them proofread by someone else, and make sure that there's new information in every essay, so that it's not some old information that doesn't go with the new school. And writing is a window into the mind. So a student is proving that they're college ready through their writing. It's a way for the admissions officers to see your intellectual prowess. So shortening the essay to fit the count. Ways to do that are being concise. Contractions can be used. It's supposed to be in the student's voice. When we speak, we tend to use contractions. Use short paragraphs, little bite-sized paragraphs. It just makes it easier to read. It's more inviting. And so Mark Twain, it's hard to be concise and write. It's much harder to write something that's tight than not. So Mark Twain wrote, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead."
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Ellen, along that lines about keeping things tight, somebody asked, could you use ChatGPT to help reduce the length of your essay once you have a draft?
Yeah, I don't, there's just so many things with ChatGPT. I would hope, possibly, since it is your essay, I would hope that would be okay. I just don't know. What do you think, Debbie?
I think you have to be careful. I mean, I'm a little bit on the fence. I absolutely, you cannot use it, to create the initial draft. If you have something that's like, 350 words, you want to get it to 300 words. I'm not opposed to running it through and see what they suggest. I wouldn't take everything straightforward, because it does have the chance of kind of like, not dumbing it down, but kind of, but just making it very bland, so I'm not going to say don't use it, but I'm not going to say take every suggestion it offers. I am going to say do not use it for anything initial, because you need to come up with your own original material. But if you want to use it as like a final kind of pass through to, maybe squeeze out a few words, I wouldn't be opposed.
Okay, and there you go. There's Debbie's official answer.
Opinion.
Opinion. Okay, so now we're going to look at these principles and actions. So I'm going to stop this. And so the first thing I want to do is show you. So this is Dartmouth's magazine, and it's 3D magazine. And every year they have, they share some, not too many colleges do this. You can always Google it and see if you come across this, but they share essays that worked and students they accepted.
You know,
and-
Johns Hopkins does this too.
Yes, and last year they were sharing supplemental essays, and I went to, I saved the link and I went to it, and I could only find personal statements. So yes, so they have personal statements. Tufts has personal statements. Connecticut College has them. Hamilton College does, but finding the supplemental essay is not commonplace. So Dartmouth is a great one for that. And these are, I'll let you guys read them. I don't want to take up a lot of time, but it's on page 8.
You know what, Ellen, can you take that link and put it into the chat?
Okay, yep, I can do that. I am technologically savvy, Debbie. I know it's a very high bar we got here. Okay, now I'm just gonna find the chat. Okay, here it is, it's up top. Sorry, my bar was up there. Okay, here we go. Paste. And for people that watch this afterwards, it's just Dartmouth 3D magazine and page 8. Okay. All right, so the next thing I want to share is Tufts. So this is from their website. Here are their questions for this year. And so the first, they choose for one of 3 questions, 200 to 250 words. See, it's all there clearly spelled out. It's cool to love learning. What excites your intellectual curiosity and why? Now that can be a why this major essay. That could be a why, you know, what's your favorite activity essay? You know, that could be different things. How have the environments or experiences of your upbringing, your family, home, neighborhood, or community shape the person you are today? So that's a community essay, right? It could also be diversity. Using a specific example or 2, tell us about a way that you contributed to building a collaborative and or inclusive community, and that's a community one. The fine arts has its own question, and then there's one more at the bottom, 100 words or less. I'm applying to Tufts because that is a why us essay. And there you go. So that is an example. So now what I want to show you is, oops, this is not what I want. Sorry, let me go, here we go. Okay, this is what I want. I hoped, come on. All right, here we go. So when I was watching a Tufts talk one time, they had this great example of some essays. So I took a screenshot. So I'm going to read it to you. It's the Why Tufts essay. And then I'm going to ask Debbie and or anyone else that wants to chime in what they think about this essay. So Tufts University is an interesting and exciting school for many reasons. I had previously never heard of Tufts. However, after I learned about the school and visited the campus, I knew it was where I wanted to spend the next 4 years of my education and my life. I love how it's located right outside of Boston because there are so many exciting opportunities in the city to start me on my career path. I also love how it's a typical campus style school, which I could definitely see myself living in. A small undergraduate population also excites me because I am looking forward to forming close relationships with my professors and peers so that I can be collaborative with the people around me. Okay, Debbie, what do you think?
I think it's pretty generic. I could have like taken the you know, Tufts out and I could have put Haverford College. I could have put Swarthmore College in there. It's nothing particular to Tufts.
Well, you wouldn't put them in because they're not located in Boston.
But right,
yes, no, exactly. You could put in Bentley, you could put in Wellesley, you could put in Babson. Yes, yes. So this is an essay you don't want to do. All right. So now so
that was interesting. So they gave that as an example in their session, say, don't write like this.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Good for them.
Sorry, I'm gonna get,
Mhm.
okay, so now they gave an essay they liked. So here we go. All right, I gotta make sure I can read this. Sorry, let me not worry about making it too big. And I have to be able to, there, okay, I'm just gonna leave it like this and read it. Okay, so this is an essay that does work. Why Tufts? I have been waiting to answer this question since I was a sophomore in high school. I discovered the International Literary and Visual Studies program by accident online. I became very familiar with the gray and green ILVS webpage, reading about the cultural history of the Middle East, China and the West, etc. Was an easy way to put off my math homework. Tufts is a place for multifaceted people. In high school, I've often felt torn between my different interests. I've explored gender and sexuality in my artwork, studied Qatari and the US foreign policy in depth, and discovered my love for Chinese idioms and proverbs. Whereas in high school, having this many different interests sometimes left me feeling torn. Tufts is a place where this is unexpected and celebrated. I would relish the chance to be able to wholeheartedly pursue learning Arabic, Chinese, and continuing my study of foreign policy without feeling like I had to sacrifice my love of art. I love the spirit of lighthearted nerdiness at Tufts. It was the only information session that I laughed in. Most of all, I appreciate the Tufts community is supportive, introspective, and diverse.
Definitely, it's great.
Yeah, the only thing the word relish, that, you might debate whether or not that's a word that the student would naturally use. And even if they know what the word means, which, I'm sure a lot of students do, does it sound like it's coming in their voice? That might be something that you think a parent had their hand in. Minor thing, and not to say, that there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying that's just something that stood out to me. But yes, all in all, very specific, like we're talking about, and the student got into the school. Okay, so now I want to share the supplemental essays that were shared with us. So I got some people sent me personal statements, and we weren't covering personal statements. And I wanted essays. I had a few that were in pretty good shape, and I wanted essays where we could kind of give some ideas to help improve them. So this is the University of Georgia essay question. So this, and it's kind of an interesting question. It's unique. Like, this one would be hard to recycle. So the transition from middle to high school is a key time for students as they reach new levels of both academic and personal discovery. Please share a book that had a serious impact on you during this time. Please focus more on why this book made an impact on you and less on the plot theme of the book itself. We're not looking for a book report. 200 to 300 words suggested. It's interesting they say suggested. So they're being very specific. They're giving great directions. So if someone gave a book report, the student would not be following directions well. Okay, so I don't want to, I want to thank this two students that gave me examples, and we want to make sure to be helpful and give them good suggestions. So this is what the student wrote. And Debbie, I'm going to ask you for your opinion, and if someone else has any comments they want to chime in about. The transition from middle to high school for my class was stomped on by COVID. As the world locked down and everything came to a halt, we found ourselves with little school and lots of free time. Insert my Uncle Matt. Uncle Matt is a smart guy, but the conspiracy theory beliefs have gotten wilder with time. He told my mom he had a fantastic eye-opening book for us to read. So he polished his tinfoil hat and marched off to the post office. Soon arrived Humans Are Not From Earth by Ellis Silver, and boy, was it life-changing. My mom would not even crack the book open, but I decided to give it a go. Let me first state that I'm a science guy. I'm a man of logic, reason, and common sense. The first paragraph had me rolling my eyes. This book is out there. I disagreed with about 99% of what was written. It contradicts everything solid science has taught me. It was like nothing I had ever read. I did not understand how this was even published. It is outlandish. Who would actually believe any of it? Well, Uncle Matt, that is who. My beloved, funny, intelligent, supportive uncle hangs on every word. However, this book did remind me that all types of people exist in the world. We have different opinions and beliefs, but we're all just people. I still love and respect my uncle, even if we have completely different mindsets. This unlikely book was powerful in confirming my desire to pursue a career in science. The world clearly needs more scientific research and data, as it's hard to argue with facts. I want to do my part to contribute to that, or we may actually find ourselves with a tinfoil shortage. So, Debbie, any thoughts? If you were assuming you were able to listen as you were reading things.
No, I was. I think there's something there, but it's just not like enough. I think it's just still like on the surface. There's a lot of discussion about like the story behind getting the book and the uncle, and but I don't have an example of what. I mean, I think you could provide an example from the book without being a book report about what was it that, you know, that was so outlandish. What was it that made him, you know, more specific, you know, that to recognize that there were other people in this world with different opinions? It's just, you need a few more deeper details.
Yes, I would agree with that. I want to show that I always, when I'm editing an essay, I always check the word count. It's the first thing I do. Sometimes I get essays that are 500 words over the limit, and the student is looking, they know it's over, they're looking for help culling it. So that's the first thing I do. So it was great that this was only one word over, which is very easy to fix. So I thought lots of times essays have like, it's like a one note and they're just hitting hard the same theme. Here, the student does bring up that, you know, he's into science. And the other thing he brought up is that he is accepting of others and believes that we need diversity in the world. So we did have like two notes in here, in addition to the fact that he was, and I'd also say he's a good writer. So we've kind of learned like three things about him from that perspective. And I'd add a fourth thing. He has a sense of humor, and it comes across. And a student, if they're not naturally funny, should not try to, this is not the time to be funny in writing. If they're not naturally funny, it can fall flat. It works for this student. He or she did a good job. So these are my suggestions, my edits. So what I was trying to do was culling it enough to add more in there, kind of like what Debbie was saying, whether it's a short sentence from the book or more about the student himself or herself. I'm just going to say himself, so I don't know, again, if it's male or female. The first thing I would do is get rid of kind of answering the question with a question. Just get rid of it. We don't need to, you know, that the transition from middle school to high school. So at COVID start, now these admissions officers know that, you know, this class was disrupted, like in freshman year, whenever it was, 8th grade freshman year. So COVID start, I had little schooling and lots of free time. Insert Uncle Matt. I got rid of Uncle Matt is a smart guy, but the conspiracy theory beliefs have become wilder with time. He told my mom he had a fantastic eye-opening book for us to read. So I'm just going to quickly say, I got rid of Soon Arrived and just gave the title of the book that wasn't necessary. So the first paragraph isn't bad. I would just basically get rid of the first line. But what I got into more was, again, tightening. But so I'll just let you guys look at the edits. But basically what I wanted to do was the third paragraph. However, this book reminded me that there are all types of people. I just found that was a little bit kind of trite. I just thought maybe he could, this whole part with varying, he's got different twice, so I made it varying opinions and beliefs, but we are all just people. I just thought that kind of landed flat. I thought there was a more original way of potentially saying it if you wanted to keep it in. I also thought he kind of, you know, made the point, but what I wanted to do, especially in the end, and this is why I was trying to cull stuff, I just wanted him to be more specific about, you know, pursuing a science career. Like, you know, is it, let's say it's engineering. And then I would have, with my culling, I would have written something like, I'm interested in working with Professor X when he does his research on X research. Meaning
so your point is that even though this question is, you know, a question about the student, there's a way to still pull in specifics about the school so that it makes
Exactly.
it feel like that student also knows the school and they're tying in what they like about the school to the question.
Yes, so it depends. So sometimes there might be 3 different questions, and one of the questions might be why this school, right? If that's the case, then there's no reason to do it. I think this is University of Georgia's only question. So if it is, this is a great way to bring in, he's talking about a man of science. Yeah, he does say a man of science, right? So so it's a young man, right? I'm not mistaken. So anyway, like what specifically, and obviously they're going to say what their future plans are in their major, but I'd like to know a little bit more. Let's say he does say engineering, what type of engineering and why, a little bit. So I would just do the research and find out a professor that speaks to him, what research or has that professor done, or what classes is that professor teaching, right? And then just saying then, since I have an interest in X, whatever that is, and then maybe if there's room, then say, you know, about another professor, or I then want to be involved with the robotics club, you know. So there's just a couple of ways to just weave in more so that we get to know more about the student and less about the uncle, because we're not admitting the uncle. So, but it's a well-written essay. I just think it could be taken to another level.
So just somebody's commenting, would the end be a good place to add specific things about the school? It doesn't have to be at the end of the essay. In this case, it maybe makes sense, but it could be throughout this, you know, the supplemental essay.
Yeah, so in this one, I thought that coming back to the hat, the tinfoil hat, I thought that was cute. So I would have just put it in, you know, in the body when he's talking about being a man of science. Like Debbie said, give an example of the outlandish quote from the book potentially, and then saying, you know, what he's been studying, what he believes in, and maybe the quote even goes against what he's studying specifically.
Right.
So it's a great way to, you know, that's why he wants to take Professor X's class on whatever the topic is, because it refutes exactly what's in the book. Like that could be a cool thing.
So, and somebody else is asking, do you need to be specific about, like, does a student need to be specific about their goals, like in this type of an essay?
Again, it could just be that I want to be a mechanical engineer, you know, whatever it is. It depends on the word count. It just, you know, 300 is a decent amount, but they're also, you have to answer the question. So
Right.
you can't just ignore the question and then talk about whatever you want. So he does answer the question, but then there's definitely ways to cut it down. We don't need so much background. That then it gives him room to add more to it, while still supporting this whole idea of the book and transition, and him beginning to question things and to become intellectually curious in high school and delve more deeply into academics that he is interested in.
Ellen, somebody else is asking, what if you don't know which specific major, but rather the general field you want to go into?
That's
So,
fine too.
right.
Yeah.
Like you're
yeah,
saying, like he could say, you know, he's interested in engineering. He doesn't need to specify, you know, electrical, mechanical,
exactly.
civil.
Yep. Exploring different types of engineering. Yes, exactly. I know. Yes, so it can be broad, and it can be saying I have varied interests and I'm looking forward to narrowing them down at college, or just learning more about these different interests to see where my college experience takes me. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with not knowing exactly what they want to do, because the odds are they're going to change their mind 1 or 2 or 3 times. So, and colleges know that, but they just want to know in the student's voice what they're thinking about today, and that they are intellectually curious because they're applying to be students, and that they, you know, have academic interests in mind, and how they're going to contribute to the campus.
Ellen, somebody has a very good question. You talked about, you know, that students, as one example, could reference specific teachers, specific classes to kind of show that they, you know more about the college. Where would a student get this information?
So
Where would they look for it?
Yep. So it's all on the website. they would go under like their potential, they could see what majors the college offers in general to make sure that the college has the major that they're interested in, because some majors can be very specific. And then once they do that, they click on under that major generally, and then the different courses come up, and or they can go into the department, and under the department, they can pull up all the different professors. And then if they drill down on a specific professor, often they'll show their research and maybe books they've written. And sometimes they can, there's a link to the research and they can read the paper. So there's a lot, and the classes usually have descriptions so they can see what interests them. And this is my example of, if they do these things, they'll get to know the college better and hopefully find out if it's a good fit for them.
It's a great way to get to know the college. I mean, quite honestly, one exercise is to, if a student has an idea of a major, is to look at the major, look at the requirements, you know, that both the college might have and then the specific major might have, and then pretend and say, if I went to this school and this is what I was going to major in, what courses interest me? Like, you know, what would the courses be that I want to take? And are these, you know, enough that it would give me, you know, the direction that I want to go in after college? So I think just looking at these classes for both the purpose of the essay, but also for the purpose of really better knowing the colleges is a great exercise.
Exactly. So as much as students dread this part of the process, it really does benefit them in the end. And it makes it easier when they get accepted into the colleges they do. If they're lucky enough to have choices, that they just have a better feel for each college when it comes time to make a decision. Okay, so I'm going to...
Ellen, one other quick tactical
Mhm.
question, but this is a good one. Somebody said that they noticed that you were using Grammarly. Would you recommend that program?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I use. I think it works well, but I know there are different options out there. And so, yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go to, this happens to be Villanova. So why do you want to call Villanova your new home and become part of our community? So this is a why Villanova, a why this college question. And you know, communities put in there too. So it could be, you know, kind of like what community speaks to you idea. So this is kind of a double one. So the student says, a service community learning basketball, Philadelphia. I'm excited about it all. I will enter the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences as an exploratory arts major, and am strongly interested in studying geography, a field of study not offered at my high school. I specifically feel that Villanova's passion for service matches up with who I am. I have been part of the Miracle League of Southeastern Connecticut for 4 years and hope to see my role as a service member continue to develop at Villanova University, such as the Special Olympics Pennsylvania Fall Festival and St. Thomas of Villanova Day. Villanova's tight community feel makes it truly unique. Every time I've visited the campus, everyone has been welcoming, and the high percentage of students living on campus contributes to a tight community feel. Villanova's transportation options make the concept of leaving New England a little less frightening for me as a freshman. As a massive basketball fan, I'm excited to attend games, but I feel like Villanova's basketball culture is just a sneak peek into the greater Villanova culture of support and excitement. So, thoughts on this one, Debbie?
I mean, I like it. And it's got some specifics about the school. I don't know. I feel like you could though add a little bit more. And I don't know what your thoughts are about the playing up on the basketball. I mean, of course, they're known for that, but I don't know if that's enough, if that's something you want to hang your hat on for the reason why you want to go there.
Yeah, exactly. Like that doesn't go that far. It can be woven in, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't waste a lot of words on it.
Yeah.
And the student is 36 words over. So it needs to be cut no matter what. So that could be a good thing to cut if need be, especially the extra stuff around it. Like right in the top, we know basketball is important. So so there's some low hanging fruit that's easy to pluck. So that could be one angle. So I definitely wanted more specifics. Like the student talks about geography, right? And so it's a field of study not offered at the high school. That's all we know about it. Like Like, why does a student want to study geography? Do they know nothing about geography and they're interested in it because they've never been able to study it? Or have they been studying it on their own? Like, is that just coming out of left field because they have to choose something? Like, like that just gave me pause. So I culled this a lot because A, it needed to be 36 words, but B, I wanted to make room to put more specifics in. So I actually took the liberty to, write up some stuff within it for the exercise. So you can see I culled quite a lot. So service community learning basketball, Philly instead of Philadelphia, right? I'm excited about it all, exclamation point. And then as an exploratory arts major, I don't need, they'll be entering, because that's what if they're in the College of Liberal Arts, I looked it up, they have to be an exploratory arts major, and admissions knows that. I put in a contraction, study geography. And then I went to the geography page and I looked at how they describe it. And I made this up. Now, whether or not it's exactly right, I don't know, but I wrote exploring geospatial technologies as it relates to globalization and its effects on the earth.
But your point is you're giving a specific, like a specific example. Yeah.
Exactly, of what it is about geography that excites the student. That is why I gave it some, pointedness. And then on my own, I've dug into X. Maybe the student goes down YouTube rabbit holes. Maybe the student has taken a course in geography through edX. Maybe they're constantly, looking at their globe and exploring, finding out about different, countries and looking them up. Maybe they won a geography B. I don't know, but I would like to know why the student is interested in it. And then in turn, and I'm excited to take Professor X's class, so on, a specific geography class. All right, so Villanova's passion for service matches mine. It's not up with who, matches up with who I am, just matches mine. Having been part of the Miracle League of Southeastern Connecticut for 4 years, I'll continue helping people. I looked up what it was with special needs. So I'm describing what it is through Villanova's Special Olympics Pennsylvania Fall Festival and during St. Thomas of Villanova Day. So I just thought that it was a little bit tighter. And then every time I visited the welcoming campus, and the campus can be capitalized just like college or university when you're talking about a specific one, I become more excited. Like that could be completely gone because hopefully they know the student's been visiting, but it could stay, but if it needs to go, if it doesn't need to go, that's just a quick way of tightening it. Last time I discovered X, what was it? I'd love to know, maybe they sat in on a class, right? I don't know. I'm just making this stuff up. And then ending it with, as a massive basketball fan, I'm excited to attend games, but I've learned Villanova's basketball culture is only a glimpse into Villanova's supportive and caring community as a whole. I just think that's a little bit of a stronger finish, but even still, if something had to go, that's still a little fluffy, but I think it's a little tighter. So that was my goal, was to make room to put in the specifics while still keeping the outline of the essay, because I think outline, it's fine. I just wanted more specifics. So that is the end of my part of the presentation, but I'm happy to discuss this here.
Yeah, so somebody's asking particularly related to this example, what if the student had already explained their interest in geography as a major as part of like the personal statement essay?
Yeah, so I would maybe give a tiny nod to it, just a teeny reminder, possibly, and or go in a different direction, then highlight something else and highlight, the clubs they're interested in. Just give new information. So yes, if it's redundant, don't do it, or just do a quick type of thing, because of my interest in, rocket science, whatever. I mean, that's not a good example with the geography.
I like your idea of if they already talked about this in their personal statement, then they maybe should explore other things that they would want to do on campus,
Yep.
with clubs.
Yep, exactly. So, because of my passion for geography, like alluding to, that, I know Villanova is a great fit. And I noticed that you also, there's a type of geography club, whatever, like go look at clubs, see what might relate to geography. Or in addition to my passion for geography, I'm also into, racquetball, whatever it is.
So somebody's asking, and I think, it's fair to kind of clarify our language. Somebody's saying, what's the difference between a personal statement and a personal essay?
Okay, so they're in the Common App, there's some people call it the main essay, some people call it the personal statement, people call it the personal essay. That is the one essay, the 650 word essay, that is common to all the colleges. Everyone gets it when the common part of the Common App goes out. Then the college specific essays or supplemental essays are under each individual college. So when people talk about the main essay, the personal statement, it's the same essay, the 650 word essay.
But to that point, Ellen, it is the same essay, but in theory, a student could tailor that essay a little bit to each college. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
You could. However,
just be careful.
You have to remember to do it, because if they forget and it's very specific to a college, or like sometimes students think about doing different majors, playing for different colleges, because sometimes a college might not have a major they want. So it's okay to do. You just really have to be mindful to not forget to change it.
So maybe just explain slightly like how they would actually,
So
go ahead.
yeah, so like with a supplemental essay, especially, like let's say they have an ending that they really like, and they might say something like, at X college, I plan on singing with the specific a cappella group, and knitting with I remember there was a group called the Knitwits, like doing certain activities that they just go, and maybe they like to dance too. So maybe there's a dance troupe they're interested in. And each school, they go and look up the different things and insert them. So if they have a main kind of format, I would highlight each section for the insert different club name, for example, or major, so it catches their eye. And I guess what they'd have to do with the Common App every time is take the personal statement out, so they don't forget to put a different one in that case. The supplemental essay is one thing, because that's going to go under the specific college. But with the personal statement, if they were to play that game, so to speak, I would not have one sitting in the Common App, so that I would have to remember to put one in, and then I would hopefully choose the right one that matched the college that I was sending it to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna stop my I'm gonna stop sharing this. Did you want me to show the
Well,
or hold off?
yeah, hold off. Let's just answer a few
Okay.
more questions.
I'll just stop the share if that's okay.
Yeah. Oops, I lost the question. Okay. So somebody is asking, can you explain again where a student would find the supplemental essays?
So when they're in the Common App, they have to put the colleges they're interested in. And when they, so there's a college specific section on the Common App, and they drill into that college. And then there are questions, and they might ask, do you plan on living on campus? Do you have any people, legacies? They ask different questions. And in there can be, that's where under one of those tabs for the college, specific to the college, will be the essays if they have them. They can also Google, do they have essays, type of thing. But that's where they're going to be answering it and putting in the essay.
You want to talk a little bit too, I mean, we've focused on supplemental essays, but there are other essays besides the personal statement, the supplemental essays. What other type of essays might a student have to write for a college, and when would they know that?
Okay, besides the additional information section, Debbie,
I'm thinking about like for honors or for
Okay,
scholarships.
okay, thank you. Yeah, okay. And I had talked about that earlier. I just wasn't sure what you're talking about. So
Yeah.
yes, as they're filling, they might have to write, why do you want to join our honors college? Or when they're choosing majors under this for each
But
specific.
you may not know that until you apply and say you're applying to the honors.
Exactly. And that's why I said it's important for them to answer all the questions under the college, each specific college, because they might say, what majors are you interested in? And if they hit architecture, architecture could be the only major that kicks up an essay. So it might be, not, your friends applying to the same school and they're not applying to the School of Architecture. So they're like, oh, there are no supplemental essays at this college and that's why I'm applying. Or maybe they aren't interested in the honors college. So yes, answer every question because an essay or two might pop up. It might be auto-populated because of how you answer the questions.
Ellen, somebody is asking if you've ever worked on essays related to the QuestBridge application.
I have not had the pleasure to do that. I do have a friend whose daughter.
What was the application who you worked with? A family?
It was Posse.
Posse.
Yeah,
Yes, the Posse
yeah.
Foundation.
The
Yes.
QuestBridge is, according to my friend, incredibly complex. Lots and lots of essays, very, very in depth. And they're vital to obviously write well. I don't think it's necessarily that there's anything unique about the questions. I just think they ask a lot of questions. So it's important to really brainstorm and figure out which aspect of a child each question should address again, so all sides of the student is covered. So they seem interesting and have depth. So that's a bit of an art, like do an outline and try to figure out what character traits do they want to bring out about a student, what skill sets, what passions and drives, what adversity they might have overcome. Like those are different categories, and then put in ideas under those headings. But look at the questions and figure out what they're really getting at. Is this like the idea of a YS essay? Like it doesn't look like it's a YS essay on the surface, but when you drill down to it, that's essentially what it is. Now, QuestBridge isn't going to ask that question because it's a broad thing for all the colleges in the program. But that idea, just try to figure out what it's being reduced down to.
And kind of along the lines what you're just explaining, Ellen and I did a session, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, on the Common App, and it's actually published on the Road to College YouTube channel. But it was really kind of a similar idea of looking at, we went into specifics on the Common App, but looking at all the pieces of the Common App and kind of what story you want to tell about yourself, what you want to highlight. And it's kind of similar with, the essays as well. The essays, the supplemental essays are part of the Common App, and it's really you need to kind of look at everything holistically and decide what, if you have the opportunity, if a school's asking a supplemental essay, then, what do you want to highlight there versus someplace else in the rest of the application. So I only bring this up because I think a stronger application looks stronger if it's kind of planned out, as opposed to, oh, I'm submitting this tomorrow and I just realized I have a supplemental essay and I'm going to write it tonight.
And that's why to go and drill down on each specific college early, so that they're not thinking, oh, tomorrow I'm going to send out this application and I'll just quickly put in my major, and then they find out that there was an essay hidden there, and now they have to write a 200-word essay, and they're going to write it, quickly, and it's not going to sound great. So that's why it's important to do it all early. Just put it in an Excel spreadsheet or something, just to see all the essays.
So Scott's asking, how far back do you recommend going when using examples of goals or activities? For example, my child wanted to use an example from elementary school.
I would say, so what I recommend to people, so my daughter did a lot of theater, right? So instead of like harping on things she did when she was really young, she did a collective of, that she was in 26 plays starting at age 10. So I think in that type of a context, it's helpful to, consolidate it, but unless the student, was receiving some kind of state honor, something really impressive, generally you just focus on high school. But I think if it's looking at the expansiveness of how long a student's been doing an activity, I think quickly mentioning the beginning date is helpful. But I don't know, was it awards? Was it an award or an honor? Is that what the question was?
No, it was just more an event.
Okay.
Yeah, like a,
Yeah.
like
So
a
I would,
personal event.
okay. Yeah. I mean, let's say it's in an essay. It could be a jumping off point of an essay. It could be, and then the student, reflects back on how that was a turning point in their life, or began them, like it's on this direction of being interested in engineering. Sure, there's nothing wrong with a sentence or, a little bit about that. But what I find is that students can spend 80% to 90% of the essay talking about when they were 5, 6, 7. And then there's nothing left for today. So it's very important. There's nothing wrong with doing it in the context I just said, but only put maybe 10% of the essay into that, because the essay should be about reflection, showing growth, maturity, moving beyond that, how that was a starting point for them.
Somebody is asking about a resume, and some schools, say it's optional. Do you think it's a good idea?
I'm a big believer in resumes for a number of reasons. If there are only 300 characters for each activity in the Common App, there's very little room to expand upon an activity. You control the resume. I wouldn't have a resume longer than 1 page, but you can fit a lot into that resume. And I think if it's well organized, it can definitely be a benefit. Some schools, yes, let a student upload a resume. And if they do, I would definitely have them upload it. When I work with students, one of the first things I do is make a resume with them. It's really helpful for many reasons. I think it gives them a lot of confidence. I think they're impressed to see how much they've done. I think the grouping of the different activities gets them to begin to see how they have depth. It also shows where there might be some holes, or maybe they can expand upon an interest. It's also great if for their interview to have a resume. I used to do interviewing for Wellesley. I rarely got a resume. And I remember one time I got a resume and it had a bunch of grammatical errors in it. So that wasn't great. But, and it's also a good thing if you're going to introduce yourself to an admissions officer showing demonstrated interest to attach a resume. So those are just, and you brought up scholarship essays, Debbie. Great to have a resume if you're doing scholarship essays, which usually often comes after they're done with college applications. Often a lot of, scholarship essays can be in the spring, but then they can use these essays that they wrote. They might take 1 or 2 lines out of them, or they might be able to recycle a whole one of the essays, which makes their life easier.
Somebody is asking, does the Common App have to be completed in 1 sitting?
I would not recommend it, even if it could be. No, it does not have to be. No, it should be a working document that they come back to. And, if they have to get it done, hope it's early, they have time. But I have worked with students that, I've helped them to get it done relatively quickly, but it's like writing. It needs to sit. You need to come back to someone else has to look at it. It has to be, activities can be tightened. And again, mistakes have to be looked for.
And you can also make a PDF printout of it so that as another way of reviewing it, so you don't have to only review it online. And sometimes that's just easier, you know, when you have a paper version of it to kind of go through and mark it up.
Yeah, and it comes out to be roughly about 13 pages if you don't get into like the supplemental essays, the main part of the Common App.
So I'm just reading this one question. You mentioned not referring to location, but what if our student is intent on moving back to an area where we used to live because she loved it so much more so than where we moved to and currently live? Would this be acceptable for a why this school?
Yeah, again, there's nothing wrong with location as long as like that's a specific reason to mention it, as opposed to I love warm weather. Well, how many states are in, you know, are located in the South and the West where it's warm? So generalizations like that, you know, like I worked with a student who was applying to Tulane and she was just talking all about New Orleans and that's all she talked about. And I had to tell her it wasn't a travel log, that she had to be specific, and she could give a nod to Tulane's, you know, to the New Orleans beignets, but that then she had to get specific about the university. So I think the reason to bring it up is a great reason, because that shows that the student knows the area and they're drawn to it because they have been there. Yeah, and so I think it's about being specific. It's the details.
Is it a good idea to write about how a family member's illness it was something that to make who they are and motivated them, you know, to do a new hobby?
Yes. What a student has to be mindful of is not talking more about the person with the illness than they talk about themselves. So sometimes a student will write about grandma and cooking with grandma and grandma's heritage. And at the end, the admissions officer would say, too bad grandma didn't apply because we'd really like to accept her into our college. And they don't get to know much about the student. So
I think it's a technique, there's a way of referencing like some like a prior event or a person, but not, you know, using too many words to describe it, because you want to use the words more for the student and just reference the other person.
Yes. Yeah. Through my parents, you know, experience with, you know, put in whatever the challenge was, I, you know, had to grow up quickly. And then that's one sentence. We know there was a struggle, and then they could go into the ways they grew up and what trajectory came from it.
Somebody's writing, I've heard that some schools actually prefer less than the 650 words that they allow for the personal statement. What are your thoughts about this?
So some people say that, I mean, your admissions officer is a board speed reader. They have so much to read and they only have, you know, less and less time they're given. And so some people say that admissions officer will be happy to read 550 words and they'll thank you. I don't know. Most students that I work with, we have to get it down to the 650. So, and I see them get accepted to colleges. So if the student has said everything they need to say in 550 words and they've made their point and they feel good about it, that's fine. But usually if a student is really, you know, trying to cover all their bases, often it's rare that I get a student, unless a student is not. So again, I get like there's just one theme. And if a student is just sticking with one theme that, you know, they love baseball, that essay can be short. But I would always say, take that baseball theme and tie it to other things that they love in life or other ways they've been challenged or faced disappointment, whatever the connection is with baseball, and then tie it to 2 other things in their life, events, experiences, and then suddenly the baseball essay is much more expansive and is going to naturally be 650 words. And we're going to get to know a lot more about that student.
So another person wrote, I'm writing an essay about an event that was technically in middle school, the end of 8th grade. It's a large accomplishment. They advanced to the worlds in robotics. Is it okay to use that as their personal statement? End of 8th grade.
Yeah, I mean, there are no hard and fast rules. I think obviously that's impressive. And then I imagine the student would then talk about what they've done since 8th grade. I don't think they hung up their robotics hat, right? I imagine they continued with it, or maybe after they did that, they found something else they became passionate about.
So I think you could use it even like, to describe it at the beginning of the essay. I just wouldn't use it as the whole essay, since it was something that was the end of 8th grade.
Exactly, because hopefully you've matured and had other experiences. But yes, I think it could be a definite starting point, or it could be referenced in the essay. Yeah, I mean, what has happened since? And or what changes, or did you experience through that event that has shaped you today? How did it help bring you to where you are today in your life? But yes, I think touching upon it is perfectly fine. But I don't think the whole essay should be about it, if that's going to be, yes.
What's your recommendation, Ellen? How long do you think it does take to do the Common App, the personal essay, supplemental? It's like, how much time should a student be expecting to devote to this? To really, and when I say time, not just like, oh, it took 3 hours, but was that over a weekend? Was that over 2 weeks? Like, how much breathing time should they also give in between?
Yeah, so I could see the Common App could definitely be done over a weekend, over a day. It's like not the essays, right?
So you're saying just the filling out of the sections, and
yes.
The most important section is the activities section.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. And that's the type of thing, they want to come back to. But I think that it could get to 80, 90, 95% done, over a weekend. But again, it's good to come back to things with fresh eyes. It's important to leave time, but the majority of the work could be done like that. Could be done probably in 2-3 hours. It might not be your best work, but it can definitely be filled in. But the essays need time. They need time to breathe. I do edits like 6 to 8 times, depending upon the student, how well it's written to begin with.
To plan it, you should spend the time to plan what you want to focus on. Again, maybe if there's multiple essays, and then time to outline it. So there's time before even getting to the writing, which will be well worth it.
Yeah. And so often the first essay I get from a student, it doesn't get used. It's often too common of a topic, or
not enough detail.
Exactly. No depth to it. Yeah. So, but that's part of the process. So that gets set aside, but through that first reading of that essay, I learned a little bit more about the student, and I'll say, well, could we expand upon this area? And sometimes we just have to go back. I've got to brainstorm with them. Sometimes you just got to start completely from scratch. So everyone's process is different, and everyone's level of writing is different. And I think students grow a lot as writers through this process. So that takes time. Writing is rewriting. And at the end, if they become better writers, which if the student works the process, they will become a better writer. It's going to make their life easier in college. And I just have a lot of students that come back, and their parents just say that the students' writing has just improved greatly, because grammar isn't taught a lot in schools anymore. And they haven't written in this type of a genre before too. So it's a learning process.
So maybe, Ellen, if you could share this last slide. Hopefully you've gotten some good tips and ideas about how to approach the supplemental essays from what Ellen talked about tonight and the examples we showed. But if you want any extra help, we offer 2 packages. Actually, one is a Common App package, and it can range the gamut of if you want help with your student to actually fill out the Common App, and again, going into the sections, the most important section being the activities section, and really deciding which activities you're going to include and how you're going to write them up. And that's one package. Or if you just want help with essays, and we kind of lump them together, you can use the time to either focus on the personal statement, that main essay, or if you have several different supplements, we can work with you also on figuring out the supplements or a combination of the two. So we're pretty flexible how that essay coaching time is used. We just are here to help students and families however they need help with to get the process done. I mean, we're technically still the end of July. Students have the month of August. I just really encourage, whether you work with somebody or do it on your own, to use the month of August and get started. You can probably finish most of the essays and the application in August, and wouldn't that be nice before starting school? So that's just my plug to really get students started and focused in August. And then the fall will be a lot more relaxing. There'll still be hiccups. There will still be last minute things that need to get done, but it will be a lot smoother if you can get the bulk of the work done in August.
Yeah, I think parents and students underestimate the fact that they have another class, and it's called AP College Admissions.
Right.
And that is what happens in the fall. And the more they can get their summer homework done for the AP College Admissions class, the better off the student will be to then make sure that their grades continue to either rise or to stay the same. So when colleges see their first quarter or semester, that the grades are on par with what they've been doing in the past or have improved.
So if anybody has any lingering questions, feel free to send them to me. You can send them and I will, either I can answer them or I'll pass them on to Ellen at Debbie@road2college.com. And, I answer a lot of questions from Ellen and I do, from Common App questions to student loans to finances. So feel free to reach out. And again, hopefully this was helpful. I see some last minute questions. If you don't mind sending them to me through email, that would be great. I can't believe, Ellen, an hour and a half does fly by. And a recording to this will be sent, a link to the recording will be sent out tomorrow. So you can watch it again and I really encourage you to go to the YouTube channel and look at the Common App session that we did a few weeks ago. And even there's a session from a year ago about Common App mistakes. And I think we're going to be repeating that in a few weeks. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for the people who submitted their essays. It was very helpful, and hopefully they got good feedback.
Yes, thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay. Take care. Bye.